Hello, Pleasurista communities, my lovers, my friends, all of you gorgeous people that are here with me in the Unabashed community. Today's episode is coming to you live from Africa in Cape Town. I have just come back from a 40-day safari adventure that was an absolute trip of a lifetime. If you've ever thought about going to Africa and do a safari, like it had been on my bucket list for decades, I have finally accomplished that goal with my soulmate, Naeem. We got to travel with some friends, and it really, and I will tell you why, it was a trip of a lifetime because it had passion and purpose and moments that broke my heart and filled my soul at the exact same time. Uncertainty, adventure, there was delays. There was also so much majesty and natural magic that we got to experience. And this episode may be a little bit triggering for some of you that are listening. This is going to be talking about female genital mutilation. I am going to be talking about some more touchy and sensitive topics. So, just giving you a little bit of an advanced warning ahead of time on this conversation because I experienced so much magic, so much joy, so much passion, so much purpose. But as I said, I also experienced some heartbreak that also filled my soul. And that is going to be the real topic that I want to bring to this episode today, was sharing with you my personal experience, not of the whole Africa trip and safari. You can go check out my Instagram and, the link. You can go look at all the stories, go look at the highlights, dive into all of the amazingness of seeing the leopards and the cheetahs and the lions, which was incredible, and seeing the elephants and being with them in their majesty that just commanded absolute presence. Like, these are some majestic, huge, like mammoth figures in my life that I saw. I was like, whoa, these things are massive. They are like a mammoth proportion. They're like so amazing. It's so cool to see. That was a big dream of mine, to see elephants in person and to see cheetahs and the wild cats and the leopards as well, seeing rhinos and baby rhinos and wildebeest. And it was just truly, truly a trip of a lifetime. And in that trip, we had traveled on a road trip, which is really wild to go on a road trip for 24 days with a group of friends, a small group of friends, another couple of ours, and their child. And we said yes, they said yes, and we went together. We knew that we could travel well with them. We knew that it would be really fun and, for the most part, really graceful and really easeful because we're pretty particular with who we travel with. So we were extremely happy that we said yes. It really was a special trip that I will take with me to the end of my life. And getting to do it on the anniversary, the 1 year anniversary of when Naeem proposed to me, which I didn't realize when we were going on our first safari in the Tsavo National Park, was even more special when he mentioned it as our anniversary. And it just lit me up. And so I posted those things on my Instagram. Go check it out, community, and dive into more of, the intimate areas of my life, as I was sharing a lot more of this trip on my social media than I've shared personal things in the past. So highly recommend it. But on this trip, something unexpected happened in the most beautifully divine designed guided way. It was a very directive lead here. And while we were traveling on our road trip, we went from town to town. And in those little towns, there were these small communities or small villages. And we decided, Naeem and I, to go on walks. We do our gratitude walks every day, but we decided to, and really with his leadership, guide me, because I was nervous about it, to go into other people's small villages within the city. And these villages, are small, like shanty tin huts where there's multiple families living in a little shanty home, multiple kids running around. And we were greeted with so much love and warmth and joy from all of the kids running up to us and saying hello. And they want to touch me and they want to hug me and they want to be next to us. And seeing Naeem just being absolutely extraordinary as like a kid whisperer. He's amazing with animals, but man, this guy's also so amazing with kids. It really just made me fall in love with him. even more was like, wow, he loves kids like I love kids. This is fucking amazing. This is so cool. We love animals. We love kids. We love community. We love giving back. Like, wow, God, thank you so much for this soulmate that I get to live my life with. Like, deep, deep gratitude and reverence in that moment of witnessing him with the kids. And as we would go from village to village, we would play games with the kids. We would say hello to the village people. We would, walk around, obviously with some level of cautiousness, because we are entering into, people's homes and their backyards right in the middle of these dirt roads and dirt houses. So we were definitely mindful, very courteous, and also very friendly when we came in. We were greeted, like I said, with all the kids, and people were really high and happy to see us. And not every single person was happy to see us because, we're foreigners in their small village town, but they weren't, unfriendly, or they weren't dangerous in any way. So that was something that was really, for me, a surprise on how fulfilling that was, to not be about, likes and status or bookings or talks or podcasts or anything to do with work, my business, or my career, but to simply go into a village with children running out that just I can shine my light on and pour my love into, that want it, that are ready for it, that are receiving it, and that at the same time are shining their light of purity, of innocence, of heart and joy that was filling me up at the same time. And the level of purpose I experienced and fulfillment being there from village to village, when we went to Arusha, or when we're in Tanzania and going across in Kenya, when we're driving in these villages, I felt the same thing. And I left feeling so much more energized, whole, happy, grateful. And they taught me something that I didn't realize, was that they taught me that no matter your circumstances, no matter your background, no matter what's going on, what you have, what you don't have, and we hear this all the time in spiritual teachings, that the biggest gift in life is to be grateful for what you have. And it's easy to say to be grateful for what you have when you have a lot of things, when you've built a lot of things, when you have money and you have resources and you have family or you have parents. Like, it's easy to be grateful for what you have. And for me, when I had my childhood, as some of you have known in my community, those of you that are newer, I had a really rough and tough childhood growing up. And so for me, I wasn't grateful growing up. I was angry. I was feisty. I was sassy. I had a lot of freaking anger. Even though I had, amazing sisters around me, I had a real big chip on my shoulder for majority of my life into my 20s, until I was doing this spiritual personal development work. And when I was with these kids, it healed a part of my childhood memory that I'd been holding on to, even subconsciously, that I didn't realize until I was immersed with these children. And that was to be so immensely grateful for the childhood that I had. And in retrospect, to see how much I actually did have, and that I could have been joyful and grateful for what I had. Because seeing these kids with nothing, I mean, there's no running water. They have to go with buckets for miles in some of these villages to the local well to pick up water and bring it back to the family to then boil, and then use that boiled water for drinking water or brushing their teeth. And still, it's not the best quality water, but they were happy. They didn't have heat, they didn't have electricity, they didn't even have a shower. A lot of the kids were very, dressed in very dirty clothes, very dusty clothes. Their feet were dirty and dusty. They didn't even have real toys to play with. They were playing with like socks with coal. And yet these kids were rich. They had joy. They had gratitude. They had spirit of heart and God and grace beaming through them, and the light. And that healed a part of me. It healed a part of my childhood. It ended a chapter within the book that I had a pen still open to, and then I had been rewriting and reworking with, but that was like the final healing of the rewrite of my childhood. Because I always had running water and a shower and a roof over my head. regardless if it was a family home or a homeless shelter or foster care, I still always had some sort of supervision, some sort of roof, some sort of food, shower, shelter, electricity, clothing, even if it was a hand-me-down that I would feel embarrassed about. None of that was even a reality for these kids at all. That didn't exist. There weren't even homeless people around. There were no homeless shelters. They were all living in a village together. And that type of mentality, that type of community, that type of universal love was such a soothing balm so unexpectedly on my own inner child. And that was a huge gift for me that I did not go seeking, but yet the divine had in store for me. One of the things that I always teach my clients that my master teachers, Ron and Mary from spiritual psychology, instilled in me is that healing happens while you're in motion of life. And what I mean by that is in this healing world, we get caught in these cycles of having to always go backwards to heal our shit and look at, I need to heal this or I need to heal that. When really, this philosophy and this principle is that the more you focus forward on embodying your full divine expression, your perfect divine expression of who you are, whatever's in the way of that expression will come up to be healed. You don't have to go looking for it. You don't have to go digging for trauma wounds and gold treasure of the past. In fact, it's an exact example of this, where I'm moving forward with my ability to give more and take time off of work, to be in villages, to meet kids, to dance with them and teach them a dance and sing and play with them for the sake of loving. And that piece of me that was not in loving, the inner child part that was still maybe having a little bit of that chip on her shoulder and a part of her that still felt resentful or angry to her parents or the past, that part was blocking my perfect divine expression of being love. And what a gift, what a joy, what a pleasure that came up for me to see organically and naturally to heal. And that was just the beginning of what I want to share, because that's not triggering in any way. That's amazing. That's incredible. And that's available for all of us to continue to work towards our goals and dreams and really the expression of who we want to be. That's a part of, the work that I do. That's what I teach. That's what I embody. That's what I live and breathe all day long. And the trip just kept getting better and better. And we moved towns and we stayed at this incredible 5-star resort where we had literally like a butler and turn down service where they put chocolates on your pillow and hot water bottles under the sheets when you'd come back from your 5-course meal dinner. And we had the chef making us custom meals and custom desserts because we don't eat dairy every single day. I haven't eaten that much in, I don't even know how many years, like 3 meals a day, 5-course meals every single freaking day, having an assistant follow you around, to make sure you're safe because there's wild animals that may come out in the resort. And everyone was so amazing and so friendly. And it was such a great place to be in. It was called Tarako. And if you're ever in going to see the Ngorongoro crater, it's amazing. I would highly, highly recommend it. And we found that place by accident, but like I said, it was really by divine design. We were meant to go to this other lodge. The lodge felt like a cave, number one. Number two, that was a very busy, stacked work week for all of us. And so we needed to be on Wi-Fi. We checked it out. There was no Wi-Fi and we didn't know what to do. So we were searching around because all the other places were not great and they were the same setup. And then we found on our friend's app that there was this awesome place through the Marriott. And we figured this is good quality. It said it had high-speed internet. And again, these are first world problems, 100%, absolutely. And it's a very real conversation to have if you are an entrepreneur building your business and you are choosing to live an extraordinary life where you get to live and work wherever in the world you want to be. And that's exactly how we've designed and created our life. So for us, having Wi-Fi on those weeks so we can show up with exceptional conditionings to serve our clients at the highest level, it's a non-negotiable. And so that brought us to Tarako. When we were in Tarako, we were driving, a couple of days to see the Ngorongoro crater for 2 days, where We got to see, the wildebeest and the flamingos and the leopard. And it was just absolutely mind blowing, like just so freaking cool to be there, to be witnessing the animals, to be present with them, to be with them for hours on end. It rewired my nervous system from feeling burnt out from earlier this year's TED Talk preparation. I had no idea how much I needed nature's medicine to be immersed in nature, in the crater, with the animals, to witness in quiet and in silence. It was just really what my soul had called in and needed. And that could have never happened if we didn't use the power of our yes to say yes to a 24-day road trip, or say yes to going to South Africa instead of going to Burning Man this year, right? So all of the ways that we take audacious action and we say yes to moving towards our dream that's going to expand us versus just what's fun now, even though it's not comfortable or doesn't make sense or doesn't seem logical, something seems easier. When your hunch is telling you to do something different, I'm going to take that audacious action to follow through and listen to it, because that's where the magic's really coming in. And if we didn't follow that hunch and go to Tarako and we didn't stay there, the next part of what I'm going to share in this podcast would never have happened. While we were staying at Tarako, we were going in to see the crater. And one of the days we ended up getting a guide, and the guide took us to what's known as the Maasai tribe out here. So out here in South Africa, there's the Maasai tribe. And the Maasai tribe are the indigenous tribe of African people who live on the land, who live off the land, who, hunt and gather and live in community. And so one of the days we got an opportunity to go in and visit the Maasai tribe, which was super cool. I've always wanted to go to the tribe. I've always wanted to visit the tribe. I was so thrilled, elated. Again, go check out my IG. You can see all the photos on there. And we pulled up to the tribe and we were welcomed by the tribesmen. The head tribeswomen dressed me in traditional Maasai tribe jewelry, which is beaded jewelry, and like the shawl. And we got a beautiful welcome from the Maasai men, who did this really interesting welcoming dance song for us, which kind of sounds like almost like animals dying. It was very interesting, very, very interesting. And then they do this jump. They're known for jumping, jumping, jumping. So they were jumping and, doing this interesting sound and circling around us. And it was pretty cool to see. Very different, right? It's amazing to immerse yourself in a different culture. And then the women started to come out and they were gathering. And all of a sudden, when they started to open their mouths and sing, I felt this big surge of sadness and grief from the women without any types of verbal communication. It was through my entire nervous system could feel the subtle body energy of that collective group of women, the pain, the grief, the sadness that these women were experiencing. And I almost cried. I had to stop and breathe and take a pause and hold my fiance's hand and just know, okay, this is not my pain. This is theirs, right? Let me do my transmutation work, put the energy into the ground, take a nice deep breath, send it some love, right? And get curious around, okay, what's happening here? Is this my hallucination? Is it something that, which I know is not a hallucination? Let me just tell you right now, because if my body is telling me something, my body is neurosensing. And that neurosensing is sensing what's going on in their other nervous system. That's a bit of a higher level teaching that I teach my female leaders, but you can train your body to be an instrument to pick up and sense, neurosense, mirroring sense, everyone that's around. We all have that ability. So I knew it wasn't just, am I just hallucinating? No, I knew it wasn't, but I wanted to find out the deeper reasoning of why I was picking that up. Was it old? Was it ancestral? Was it present? I would say that's more of an accurate explanation of what I was wanting to communicate. And so we went in and we went to one of the men's homes, and the home was literally made out of poo, like animal poo and straw and cow skin. And the only thing that they eat is the animals that they kill, their blood, and their milk. That's it. And when I asked why don't they eat salads or like anything else, he said Maasai, one of the heads said that this is, Maasai law. This is their tribal law, that they do not eat anything besides blood, milk, and the animals that they kill. And I thought, oh, wow, that's really, really interesting. I said, I also noticed this, kind of sense of this like sadness and grief, like the women, are the women here happy? And he says, no, they're not. They have a lot of responsibility here. They have a lot of responsibility that they have to take care of. They have to make jewelry, take care of the kids, cook the food. And they are actually polyamorous. So the women are also sharing their homes and their kids with multiple other women wives. And they're not very happy about that. And I was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. This is old tribal ways, root chakra. In order to survive, right? They need to be able to stay in a community. And I get it. The men were hunting, so the women were gathering. But as I started to do some more, as I always do, my fiance calls me such an investigator. He's like, you should have been like investigatory journalism. I'm so curious. I'm genuinely curious. And I wanted to find out more, but we didn't have time to find out that much more yet. But I did buy some jewelry. I did try to talk to some of the women, and we did get to see some of the kids at the school. Now, here's where my curiosity started to take me, because I was wondering what's going on with the women here. Well, we got to the school, and the school had all of the kids in the school with flies on their eyes, and they had been so desensitized from the flies that the flies were literally in their eyes. Some moments I had to look away. It was so bad, so bad. And some of these kids get eye infections because the flies lay eggs in their eyes, and then it grows and it infects, and it's a really unhealthy situation for these kids. But I couldn't help but notice that a majority of the kids in there were all boys. Maybe 3 or 4 of them were girls. And we asked about that. And guess what came as a result was that, in the Maasai law and culture, that the women are not to be educated, that it's for the men and the boys to be educated, and that these are the old tribal Maasai ways, and that the women are to bear children and to take care of the entire village. For me, I got lit. And I got lit in a way where I was like, oh, really? I need to know more about where the heck this is coming from. And this was a moment where I really had to catch myself to not judge, even though I don't agree. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Why are the women not being educated? This is the most important thing that these women should be getting, that these girls should be getting, to be able to grow up and be a smart, educated woman and make decisions for herself. And does she want to have multiple husbands? Does she not want to have multiple husbands? Like, where is her choice here? Right. So to be in that tribe, in that community as a witness, not as someone there coming to change it or shame it or judge it, was such a lesson for me to embody neutrality, to embody the loving witness and observer, and not try to change it or make it wrong, but to witness it and to be curious. Again, it's a practice that you hear me talk about all the time in your relationship, in your sex life, in your relationship to your body, in the relationship you have to your emotions, to your money, like to everything. This is a tool that is a game-changing advantage for anyone who wants to be a master creator and manifester of their own life experience. You've got to be able to master your emotions, even when they come in moments like that. So I was just, okay, I witnessed a part of me that wants to change this whole thing and blow this fucking shit up and be like, how dare you? Another part of me is like, I'm in their village. They opened up their home to me. This is a fucking privilege and a gift to be here. Be quiet, listen, ask nice questions, be curious, gain information, and then take it to your fucking platform like I'm doing right now to share, which is the purpose of this episode, to share my thoughts and opinions around what I experienced within this tribe and in this culture. And this to me showed me very clearly that, okay, they're still in tribal. Clearly, they live in poop homes and huts and they eat off of that. So they're very much in survival mode. I understand as well that the men would used to go out and hunt, and the women would be together in the village. Very, oh, we all know this, hunter gatherers, right? Traditional, very root chakra, very tribal. But the difference that started to shift and why these women in the modern day now were still so unhappy is because now the men don't have to hunt. The animals are all on the land and they've breeded them and they're farming. So majority of the men in the village are just sitting around all day, doing nothing, hanging out, going to go fuck their wives when they want to, whichever one they want to, and then go to sleep and be done. That's the extent of their roles and responsibilities nowadays on the men. While the women's responsibilities are still the same: taking care of the kids, boiling and cooking the food, the meat, the water, the blood, cleaning, bathing the kids, bathing themselves, bathing the men, cleaning the huts, keeping the house, getting the fire, like getting the firewood, making jewelry, trying to sell the jewelry, like making the fabric, making the clothing. Like these women are fucking beyond stretched in their capacity. And yet, through this Maasai law, that's their role and responsibility. And yet, the men don't evolve that to take on more of that role and that responsibility because that's just the Maasai way, which, in my honest opinion, is I don't fucking agree with that at all. I don't think that that's empowering women. I don't think that's empowering men. I don't think that's supporting the evolution of humanity at all in a way that's going to help both of the sexes thrive, let alone let the village evolve. And that evolution would go from root chakra into sacral chakra, which is actually where you focus on your importance of your interpersonal relational dynamics, because that's root chakra going from the survival, we got to just live like this, to, okay, sacral chakra, relationship dynamics, pleasure. Hello, pleasure. Being able to make money, manifest abundance, being creativity, be in different type of relational dynamics, right? So that's where I see this evolutionary opportunity. And yet there's resistance to that within this community, within the tribes. Not all of them, but the traditional ones, a lot of them, the ones that live inside of the crater and all the ones around, they've just accepted that that's their reality. They don't know anything else. And that's what's really interesting around education and resources, is when you are in a bubble like that, and that is all you know, that world is all you know, that lifestyle is all you don't know anything else. No one's educating you on it. No one's bringing in more resources or educational information or tools to be able to help you learn and grow. And when you do, you still have to go to that tribalism mentality, which is the whole tribe would have to agree, or that whole tribe will either kick your ass out or kill you because it's not good for the tribe. That's where we get to the third chakra of identity and individualization. But this community, the Maasai tribe, they're not evolving up when we look at the spectrum of self-realization, self-actualization, and evolving even through the chakra system. They're not considering that. They're not focused on that. They don't know about it. They're not really interested in it. And what's even more fascinating is the suppression of the sacral chakra. And this is where it's going to be a little bit more graphic. So if there are kids around or things like that, maybe you want to put your headphones on or lower it a little bit more, just, being considerate here. So when we're looking at the sacral chakra, talking, and you know me, I'm all about pleasure. I'm all about love and sex and interpersonal relationship dynamics and empowerment and full expression. Well, one of the traditional rituals through the tribal laws of Maasai is that the men can have sex with all the women and that the women have no say because women are sold as commodities. That's how they no longer have to hunt the animals. They're actually just trading other tribes for their animals for their women. And that type of exchange women for animals, women for resources, is very much a part of the Maasai tribe law right now, today in 2025. And how that continues to survive through their tribe and their community is that these women are not, number one, they're not educated, as you can see from the school, as I highlighted. They don't take them to school to get educated. So at a very young age, there's, very small kids in school. The women are not going to school. The little girls are not allowed to go to school. They have to stay at home. That's number one. Then number two, as the little girl gets a little bit older, maybe 7, maybe a little bit younger even, she goes through the Maasai tribe law of genital mutilation, where they cut off her clitoris and take away her power. This is, again, a part of their tribal laws, but guess who it benefits? It benefits the men, and it benefits the male doctors within the tribe that continuously get paid to do these very brutal, unlawful, in my opinion, outdated, harmful to their health, their humanity, their sanity rituals. And then they're sold for cattle and traded to older men. And I'm talking about women, little girls, girls who are like 6 years old, 12 years old, that are then going through genital mutilation by force from a male doctor that they're paying to give him money to do this. So that's his job. He doesn't want that to be over. Because if they decide to say, hey, we don't want to do genital mutilation anymore, that male doctor's job, who's the head medical leader of that tribe, is going to be pissed. Now, the money that he's going to have to buy rice and beans or whatever it is going to be gone. He doesn't want that. They don't want that. He doesn't have a purpose. And then the next layer of that is once he does that, and she now has all her power taken away, her clitoris is taken off, those 10,000 nerve endings, the part of her that is literally divinely designed to experience pleasure, sacral chakra, root chakra, is taken away without her having a choice or a say or an opinion. Imagine the psychological damage and impact that that does on a girl. Her worth, her sense of self, her own body image. Just imagine that. That's just brutal, brutal. And then for her to maybe that year, maybe that same week, maybe a few years after that, when she's submissive, because they do that for her to stay submissive. And they do that in the Middle East as well. If you cut off a girl's clitoris, she's no longer going to have an instinctual drive to search and explore her pleasure for the sake of her pleasure. So when you take away the nerve endings that drive a woman and a young girl to search her own body and to find out what pleases her and what doesn't please her, she isn't going to be looking for anything. And if you, the same hand that took it away from her, she now, just like sexual abuse survivors, they now become complacent and they become docile to the hand that created the trauma and the abuse in the first place. And they become submissive for the sake of their own safety. That's the sadness, the pain, and the grief that I felt when I landed on that tribe's land. All of those women had gone through that same exact process. All of them. And what I soon found out is that they also, again, marry the girls off at that younger age to men, multiple wives. There's even situations of, like I said, a girl that's 6 or 12 years old that's being forced to marry a man who's 56 years old. And this is seen as acceptable and that it's okay because it's tradition. And I'm sharing this not to just shock you all, but to educate you to understand, again, this is happening in our modern time. This is happening now, today. And there are ways that we can help support, but without being educated or understanding or even giving a shit that this is happening, which if you're a female empowerment, women's girls girl, and you don't give a shit about this stuff, then you're in the wrong place. You're not meant to be in my home, in my community whatsoever. You're not. And if you're teaching this, you're talking about it, you're not in any way being an advocate for young girls who are going through things like this, then I invite you to step your game up and educate yourself, because I've been talking about genital mutilation for years and years and years. I talk about it on Pussy Priestess, the podcast. I talk about it when I do my talks. I talk about it in many different shapes and form, but main social media doesn't like me to talk about it. So, and sometimes I know it's very uncomfortable for people to hear me talk about it. But you know what? I don't care. I'm talking about it because it's my platform and it's something that is meaningful to me that I'm going to share with you all. So if you want to keep listening to how you can make a difference and educate yourself a little bit more, I invite you to keep listening with me, and do not push end just yet. Because I had the opportunity, like I said, the divine design, when we left there, was like, wow, I want to do something about this, but I don't know what to do about it because this is not my community. It's not my tribe. This is their way. I'm meant to just be educated and listen to it. But God, I wish I could do something else about it. We're driving back home to our beautiful place in Morocco in between the days, and our friend that we're with sees the sign. And on the last day of our adventuring safari, she reaches out to the sign that she saw, which is this beautiful hidden little gem called the Maasai Girls Rescue Center. I will put the website and the Instagram in the show notes. We see this little sign that's barely able to be seen from the main road, and she looks it up. And at breakfast, we're sitting there, having our 5-course breakfast meal, and super grateful, reflecting on everything and how that both, that experience impacted both of us. And she reached out and she found that we can actually go visit this Maasai Girls Rescue Center. And this rescue center is specifically built for vulnerable Maasai girls that are at risk of early marriage, of female genital mutilation, of poverty, giving them not just a safe home, but an education and the skills to build an independent, powerful life for themselves with the right to choose. I was all about going to volunteer there and all about helping and finding out more on what we can do. So I was elated to find out that we could go in for a visit. And they actually, what they need the most, before I tell you about my experience there, what they need the most isn't actually money, which I was very surprised when we got to go visit and meet with the founder, Rick, who's created this. He was in town doing, and I'll let you read more about it, on the Maasai, on the MaasaiRescue.org website. But he was there on like a church mission and an extended stay. And, some of the Maasai tribe wanted to leave some kids at his house. So they stayed there. He fed them. And then some kids would be walking to school and they didn't have any water. So he gave them water, he gave them food. And then it became a thing very organically. And again, divinely, we were placed right near where this was to be able to meet with the founder, Rick. And he's incredible, very big heart. And when we asked, what can we do? What's the biggest need that we need to give, that you guys need? I would have thought he would have said, we need money, we need donations, but he didn't. He said the biggest thing that they need is love. The biggest thing that these girls need right now is love. They need people to hug them. They need physical bodies at the rescue center that are positive, safe presence. That really touched and moved me, because I wasn't expecting him to say that. I wasn't expecting him to be so pure in the need of what the girls actually really need. And I had tears in my eyes listening to the story, listening to some of the stories of the girls that he's rescued and how he's created this center, which is beautiful and it's a safe sanctuary and an oasis. And they have their own farm to table garden where they grow about 85 to 90% of all the food, the animals, the milk, the water, the greens that they give to all the girls. And they have donations of people that come in and give money and give clothes. And it's pretty amazing that he's also developing a profitable lodge across the street so that that profitable lodge could be funded as the money machine to fund the nonprofit for the girls. He's gone all in on this as a dream of his. And one of the biggest dreams that I have had was not just to go to Africa and to sing and dance with the kids, but to visit specifically girls that have experienced female genital mutilation. Because although I have not experienced that myself, I have experienced genital harm unintentional by myself while I was in my own sexual exploration journey. And you might have heard me mention it on my earlier episodes where I felt like my pussy was just so gross and ugly and disformed. And through that accident and incident that I had, I developed this core belief that I was unlovable and that I was broken and something was wrong with me for over 20 years. And I've spoken about this on national television. I said I woke up through my pussy. I had my spiritual awakening through my pussy. And I talk in more detail about that, but it's so much more than just pussy yourself. It's what that represents, the center of power, our femininity. And that's been a goal and a dream of mine. So I was, teary eyed to be there, how this effortlessly manifested to be at the Maasai Girls Rescue Village and be amongst all these girls who've experienced genital mutilation, who they rescued from being married off early. Like I said, one girl was 6 years old and they were trying to marry her to a fucking 56-year-old man who was going to trade 2 goats for her. As the owner, Rick, looks me in the eyes and he says, I'm sorry to tell you, but this is the reality. These girls are straight up commodity. That's what they are. All of them are commodity for the tribes to trade and to get what it is that they want. And I took a deep breath in and just swallowed it down and let my belly get soft and let myself feel the humanness of that truth for them. If that's what the reality is, no matter how we want to fucking sugarcoat it, that's not the truth. It's not the reality. And it was a big, deep breath that, holy shit, this is truth. And that's why I said this episode may be triggering and dealing with sensitive information and issue. And it'd be way more easier for me to just forget about this episode and not post it or not, record and take the time to share. But this is something, like I said, I truly believe that if we're going to be a teacher of spiritual healing and physical healing and feminine power, we can't just talk about all the great, sparkly, beautiful shit. We've got to remember that there's a lot of dark shit that's also going on, that this isn't just a fluff, fun, woo-woo conversation and topic. There's some real needs that are out there and some real dark forces attacking young girls, taking away their femininity and their power. And it's not just in Africa. It's happening in China. It's happening in the Middle East. It's happening in Croatia. It's happening in Czech Republic. It's happening all over the world. And I just want you to be a bit more educated on it. And I'm educating myself more and more as well. And there are also organizations like the Maasai Rescue Village that are actively in a role to helping these girls build a new life and to heal. And so for me, I got to go out and see some of the girls and see where they live and see their village. And they live in bunk beds and they have community like dorms. And I got to see the pigs that they eat and the goats and the chickens and like the whole thing. And he runs it very immaculate. It's very, very well done. He's very transparent and he's won an award for one of the most transparent nonprofits. So I highly recommend looking at it if you're interested in going out to volunteer. That is what they need the most. Someone to go and volunteer for like a month, stay there for a month, 2 months, 3 months, bring your kids, like go and stay on the land and eat with them and hug them and be with them. And for me, there was a secondary healing that happened for me because we went around and we were walking around and seeing all the kids in the lands, and half the girls were at school. But we went to some of the dormitories and we saw the kitchen, we met the chef, and we did all of these beautiful things. And then some of the girls started coming home from school. And I was asking one of the head girls, the head, house moms, about what it's like for the girls to come home and what is it that they need. And she's, saying that these girls are great, they're outspoken, but this one girl, she's falling behind in her school development. She went through the genital mutilation process. She stopped speaking. She stopped learning. She was having a really hard time. So she's very behind in her development. Like I mentioned, imagine the psychological impact of that, right? That's real. That's measurable. And as he said, the greatest needs that these girls have isn't for money or for food or even school supplies. They need cuddles. They need touch. What they need the most is love. And she reminded me of that when she saw her, and she says, that's one of the reasons she's, underdeveloped and she's behind. And I said, well, I feel like you say that, and I want to touch the girls and I want to be here, right? I always thought I would go and teach them or train them or explain something to them or guide them in some sort of girls empowerment program, which I'm talking to them about developing something like that. But it wasn't any of that. What ended up being the most transformational experience happened in a matter of 3 minutes of pure human heart to heart connection with that young girl. I asked the house mother, I said, what can I do? I don't know how to approach the girls. I don't want to invade their space. I know they've gone through some trauma. What's the best way? And she was, let me show you. And she talked about the girl that was there. She called that girl over who was underdeveloped. And she's like, come here. She goes, you grab them by their head, which all the girls have to shave their heads. And you get them by the head and you rub their head. And from their head, that's a sense of honor and respect. And then you start to rub their shoulders. And they're fine with that. They want that. They won't tell you that, but they want it. I was very big with consent. So she brought her and she was holding her head, and I started caressing her head as well, and then caressing her shoulders. And then I was caressing her back, and I could just feel her whole body rigid and tight and contracted and stiff and just fully hijacked in her nervous system of fear. And I said, can I hug you? And she just whispered, yes. And I hugged her. And in that moment, what broke me was that she squeezed me back. I'm going to cry now. I'm just feeling that. Like, she helped me back. She squeezed me and she was right there with me. And tears poured down my face for the minutes that we were holding. There was no words between us, just two souls, two hearts coming together and getting to just give her love. And that was such a dream of mine that I got to live, to heal her, to heal myself, to let love heal both of us. And being with her, I could feel her body soften a little bit. I could feel her breath open and expand. And it broke my heart. It broke my heart into so many pieces. And at the same time, it just filled my soul with so much more love and grace and gratitude to know that I could give her that gift of unconditional and unwavering presence and love and divine feminine essence to help pour into her day, and to know that I made a difference in this one girl's life, and that she's maybe 9 or 10, that she's been through so much trauma and she's only in the second grade and she's struggling with her development. But in that moment, it was just pure love. It was pure, pure love. And I saw her with a little bit of tears in her eyes, and she looked away, and because they're not supposed to look each other in the eyes, even though I was. And I looked down at my hand and holding her hand and something's like, give her your ring, give her your ring. And I wear these gold bands on my fingers and I give them to my sisters, my mom, and one of my best friends gave me one. And it's one of the little, little goddess things that I do as anchors of love and energy. And so I took one off my finger and I said, can I give you this ring? Can I give you this ring for you to have? And she barely whispered yes. And I put it on her finger and we held hands and we looked at our rings together. And I saw her smile and I saw a glimmer of hope and I saw a glimmer of light. And it was one of the most beautiful and exquisite moments of grace moving through us that I think I've ever experienced naturally. No plant medicine, no meditation, no holotropic breath work, no tantric practices. Like that was tantra living through us, life living through us, eros, creativity, the divinity moving through us. And, I realized that that hug didn't just do something to heal her, it healed me too. And Rick was onto something. They didn't need the money. They don't need the school supplies or the Legos or the clothes. The girls need love and they need hugs and they need volunteers and they need women leaders who are willing to donate their resources, their skill set, their education to teach these girls to either come in person and teach them confidence skill sets, teach them how to, build their own life of independence. And especially one of the things I was speaking to was how to not be submissive anymore. How can they be confident? They don't even know what the word audacity means. They don't know how to embody boldness. They don't know any of these things. And it's terms that we see on social media and I use a lot because those are qualities that I really worked to express in myself. And they're qualities that I really give as medicine to help others express in themselves. And to hear the story and to see and to witness, to remember my past and to see her past and her future, it's skills that women do need to know how to embody to live powerful lives, to have audacity, to take action, to be bold, to have confidence to go for their goals and dreams, and to have the self trust that they can navigate whatever happens on the way to their dreams. That's how we live these very powerful and transformational lives. And so I really want to invite you, if you want to send them love notes or love stories or love letters, reach out. I think that's something that they would love to do. If this episode inspires you to want to volunteer more or learn more, send me a message, DM me on Instagram. Let me know you heard this episode. But I really highly recommend you researching, the Maasai Girls Rescue Center on Instagram as well as theirs. And I do plan to see about putting together, a retreat maybe next year or the following where we go in person and we stay there for a month and we give. We give our love. We give the most valuable thing we have, our light, our love, our presence for people who really, really need it, that could really shape a future for them that they could never have imagined on their own or in their wildest dreams. So thanks for listening to this episode. I know it was very vulnerable. I know it was very sensitive. And I know it isn't the easiest conversation to have. And if you feel like you want to learn more or see more details, what I'm explaining, I posted about this story on my Instagram. You'll see a photo of me with the little girl. We'll probably post a direct link to it on the show notes. And you can see me, you can see her smiling. You can see her with her new gold ring, which I got followed up word that she's been smiling so much more since I met her, and that she's been wearing her ring every day and she shows it off to all the girls and she can't believe I gave it to her. And she hasn't been nonstop talking about, that experience. And that's really, to me, success. That's fulfillment. To know that I made an impact in that one girl's life that has changed the trajectory of how she thinks and feels about herself or about life is worth absolutely everything. So my invitation is to take this out and to, use your own gifts as a priestess and an archetype. Where can you make a difference today for the better in someone's life? Where can you be the blessing and the gift of love in a life of someone where there's despair or they're not having any hope? Maybe you send a message that you're thinking of that person, or you volunteer somewhere that you've always wanted to do. Don't wait on those opportunities. Life is happening all the time. There's need everywhere. And the need doesn't just get smaller the farther away you get from it. The need is always going to be there. So I really invite you to do something that's going to light you up, that's going to fulfill you, and that's going to make a difference in somebody else's life. Thanks for being with me, Bashies, and I'll talk to you soon.